Hi guys, today we're going to finish The Witches and then we're going to start a new book tomorrow. So, it's off to work we go. For supper that evening, my grandmother had plain omelette and a slice of bread. I had a plain omelet, and one slice of bread, and I had a piece of brown Norwegian's goat milk cheese known as Gesto, which I have loved even when I was a boy. We ate it in front of the fire, my grandmother in her armchair, me on the table with my cheese and the small plate. Grandmama, I said, now that we have done away with the Grand High Witch, will all the other witches in the world gradually disappear? I'm quite sure they won't, she answered. I stopped chewing and just stared at her. But they must, I cried. Surely they must. I'm afraid not, she said. But if she's not there any longer, how are they going to get all the money they need? Who is going to give them orders and jazz them up at the annual meetings and invent all the magic formulas for them? When a queen bee dies, there's another queen in the hive ready to take her place, my grandmother said. It's the same with witches. In the great headquarters where the Grand High Witch lives, there is always another Grand High Witch waiting to be in the wings to take over should anything happen. Oh no, I cried. That means everything we did was for nothing. Have I become a mouse for nothing at all? You saved the children of England, she said. I don't call that nothing. I know, I cried, but that's not nearly good enough. I felt sure that all the witches of the world would slowly fade away after we had got rid of their leader. Now you tell me everything is going to go just as it same as before? Not exactly as before, my grandmother said. For instance, there is no longer any witches in England. That's quite a triumph, isn't it? But what about the rest of the world, I cried. What about America and France and Holland and Germany, and what about Norway? You must not think I have been sitting back and doing nothing these last few days, she said. I have been giving a great deal of thought and time in a particular problem. I was looking up at her face, and then she said this. All at once I noticed a little secret smile that was beginning to spread slowly around her eyes and the corners of her mouth. Why are you smiling, Grandmama? I asked her. I have some rather interesting news for you, she said. What's the news? Should I tell you right from the beginning? Yes, please. I like good news. She would finish her omelette, and I had enough of my cheese. She wiped her lips with her napkin and said, as soon as we arrived back in Norway, I picked up the telephone and made a call to England. Who in England, Grandmama? To the chief police of Bournemouth, my darling. I told him I was the chief of police of the whole of Norway and that I was interested in peculiar happenings that had taken place recently at Hotel Magnificent. Now hang on a sec, Grandmama, I said. There is no way an English policeman is going to believe you are the head of the Norwegian police. I am very good at imitating man's voice, she said. Of course, I do believe me. The policeman in the Bournemouth was honored to get a call from the chief of police of the whole of Norway. So what did you ask him? I asked him for the name and address of the lady who had been living in room 454 in the Hotel Magnificent, the one who disappeared. You mean the Grand High Witch, I cried. Yes, my darling. And did he give it to you? Naturally, he gave it to me. One policeman would always help another policeman. By golly, you've got the nerve, Grandmama. I wanted to address, my grandmother said. But I wanted her address, my grandmother said. But did he know her address? He did indeed. They found her passport in her room, and her address was in it, and also in the hotel register. Everyone who stays in the hotel put their name in an address book. But surely the Grand High Witch wouldn't have put her real name and address in the hotel register, I said. Why ever not, my grandmother said. Nobody in the world had the faintest idea who she was, except for the other witches. Wherever she went, people simply knew her as a nice lady. You, my darling, and you alone, were the only non-witch ever to see her with her mask off. Even in the home district, in the village there she lived, people knew she was kindly and very wealthy and bornous and gave large sums of money to charity. I have checked up on that. There's a picture of the grandmother. I'm getting excited now. And that address you got, Grandmama, that must have been a secret headquarters of the Grand High Witch. I still is, my grandmother said, and that it will be where the new Grand High Witch is certain to be living in this very moment, with her routine of special assistant witches, important rulers, and always surrounding her by large routine of assistants. Where's the headquarters, Grandmama? I cried. Tell me quick where it is. It's in a castle, my grandmother said, and the fascinating thing that in the castle will be all the names and addresses of all the witches in all the world. How else would the Grand High Witch run her business? How else would she summon the witches of the various countries to her annual meeting? Where is the castle, Grandmama? I cried impatiently. Which country? Tell me quick. Guess, she said. Norway, I cried. Right first time, she answered. High up in the mountains above the small village. This was thrilling news. I did a little dance of excitement and the toppled top. My grandmother was getting pretty worked up herself, and now she was heaved herself out of the chair and began pacing up and down the room, thumping the carpet with her stick. So we have to work to do, you and I, she cried. We have a great task ahead of us. Thank heavens you are the mouse. A mouse can get anywhere, and I'll have you go and put your down somewhere near the Grand High Witch's castle, and you will very easily be able to get inside it and creep around, looking and listening to your heart's content. I will, I answered. No one would ever see me moving about in the big castle. Will be child's play compared to going to the crowded kitchen full of cooks and waiters. You could spend days in there if necessary. My grandmother cried in excitement. She was waving her stick all over the place, and suddenly she knocked over all the tall, very beautiful vases and went crashing on the floor, smashed into a million pieces. Forget it, she said. It's only Ming. You could spend weeks in the castle if you wanted to. They'd never know you were there. I myself would get a room in the village, and you could sneak out of the castle and have supper with me every night and tell me what's going on. There he is, as a mouse getting excited. I cried, and inside the castle I could go snooping around simply everywhere. But your main job, of course, my grandmother said, would be to destroy every witch in the place. You really would be the end of the whole organization by destroying them. I cried. How could I do that? Can you guess? She said. Tell me, I said. Mouse maker, my grandmother shouted. Formula 86 delayed action mouse maker. All over again. You will feed it to everyone in the castle by putting drops of it into your food. You do remember the recipe, don't you? Every bit of it, I answered. You mean we're going to make it ourselves? Why not? She cried. If they can make it, so can we. It's just a question of knowing what goes into it. Who is going to climb up the tall trees and get in the Gruntel's eggs? I asked her. I will, she cried. I'll do it myself. There's plenty of life in the old dog yet. I think I better go do the part of it, Grandmama. You might come a cropper. Those are just details, she cried, waving her stick again. We shall let nothing stand in our way. And what happens after that? I asked her. After a new Grand High Witch and everyone else in the castle have been turned into mice, then the castle will be completely empty, and you shall come in and join you. And wait, I cried. Hold on, Grandmama. I've just had a nasty thought. What nasty thought? She said. When the mouse maker turned me into a mouse, it didn't become just an old ordinary mouse that you catch the mouse traps. I became a talking, thinking, intelligent mouse person who couldn't go near a mouse trap. My grandmother stopped dead in her tracks. She already knew what was coming up. Therefore, I went on, if you use the mouse maker and turn the new Grand High Witch and all the other witches in the castle into mice, then the whole place will be swarming with very clever, very nasty, very dangerous, talking, thinking mouse witches. They'll all be witches in mouse's clothing, and that, I added, could be very horrible indeed. By golly, you're right, she cried. That never occurred to me. I couldn't possibly take a cast full of mouse witches, I said. Nor could I, she said. They'd have to be got rid of at once. They'd have to be smashed and bashed and chopped up into little pieces exactly as they were in the Hotel Magnificent. I'm not doing that, I said. I couldn't anyway. I don't think you could either, Grandmama. And the mouse traps wouldn't be the slightest use by the way, I added. And the Grand High Witch who did me was wrong about the mouse traps, wasn't she? Yes, yes, my grandmother said it patiently. But I am not concerned about the Grand High Witch. She's been chopped up into long ago by the hotel chef. And the new Grand High Witch we've got to deal with now, and the one up in the castle and her assistants, and the Grand High Witch is bad enough when she's disguised as a lady, but just think of what she could do if she were a mouse. She could go anywhere. I've got it, I shouted, leaping up from a foot in the air. I got the answer. Tell me, my grandmother snapped. The answer is cats, I shouted. Bring on the cats. My grandmother stared at me. Then a great grin spread over her face, and she shouted, it's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant. She'll have half a dozen cats in the castle, I cried, and they'll kill every mouse in the place in 5 minutes. I don't care how clever they are. You're a magician, my grandmother shouted, staring to wave her stick around once again. Look out for the vases, Grandmama. To heck with vases, she shouted. I'm thrilled. I don't care if I break a lot. Just one thing, I said. You've got to make absolutely sure, and I'm well out of the way myself before you put the cats in. That's a promise, she said. What will we do after the cats have killed all the mice, I asked her. I will take all the cats back to the village, and then you and I will have the castle completely to ourselves. And then, I said, then I shall go through the records and get the names and addresses of all the witches in the whole wide world. So there's the grandma and the grandson talking. And after that, I said, quivering in excitement, after that, my darling, the greatest task will begin for you and me. We shall pack our bags and go traveling all over the world, in every country we visit. We shall seek out the houses where the witches are living. We shall find each house and go one by one. Having found it, we will creep inside and leave little drops of deadly mouse maker in the bread and cornflakes and the rice pudding and whatever food they see laying about. It will be a triumph, my darling, colossal, unbeatable triumph. We shall be entirely by ourselves, just you and me, and then that will be our work for the rest of our lives. My grandmother picked me off the table, kissed me on the nose. Oh my goodness me, we are going to be busy these next few weeks and months and years, she cried. I think we are, I said, but what fun and excitement it's going to be. You can say that again, my grandmother cried, giving me another kiss. I can't wait to get started. And there she is giving a kiss, and that's the end. I hope you enjoyed this one. I thought it was cute. We'll start the twits tomorrow. I hope you all have a good day. Mwah!